After several years of silence, she reached out to me through Facebook, and her message was unexpected. Her husband, whom she considered perfect, had cheated on her, leading to their divorce. This situation was complicated further by the fact that her toxic circle of friends began to attack me for not wanting to take her back. She was 36 years old, while I was 38, and her husband was 43. Shockingly, he left her for a much younger woman, a 23-year-old Swedish girl from his workplace. Their marriage had produced 3 children, 2 of whom were very young, only 3 and 4 years old. When she contacted me, she expressed an overwhelming sense of emotion, stating that she felt like she couldn't breathe when she saw my face again. She commented on how handsome she thought I was, mentioning how much she felt she had aged since we last spoke. She had seen my picture on the alumni page of our college after I decided to join the group. Despite the history we shared, I decided to respond to her message with a friendly tone, even though the feelings of pain I once felt for her resurfaced. I had spent 3 long years trying to move on from her, trying to forget the hurt that had come from our past relationship. Memories flooded back, including a time when she had made a pact with some of the girls in our class, vowing to never date me. One of those girls told me that the others believed I was weak and not a suitable partner for her, insisting that she deserved someone stronger. It felt bizarre, as if jealousy had clouded their judgment and influenced her thinking. I remembered warning her not to share too much of our relationship with those friends, as I felt they would only try to plant doubts in her mind. When I expressed my concern, she cried, admitting that she struggled with trust. Unfortunately, she chose to trust her friends over me, which led to her infidelity. She ended up making out with multiple people, including 2 girls I thought were our close friends. This all occurred in the mid-2000s. She later claimed that alcohol was a factor in her betrayal. While she attempted to mend our relationship, the trust was irreparably damaged, and ultimately, I walked away. The memories of her laughter, her warmth, and the way she smiled remained with me, making it difficult to move on. It wasn't until a mutual friend and I bumped into each other at a bookstore that I learned she had moved on quickly after our breakup. She never seemed to miss me and had started dating other guys, even one of our mutual friends. This was particularly painful as I had been friends with them long before she came into my life. I eventually realized that these were not the right people to be around, especially since they had all chosen to protect her from the truth about her actions towards me. Years later, she married someone who had the approval of her friends and family. She described him as an ordinary guy, not particularly charming or attractive, but responsible, caring for his mother and family. She revealed that he was the man she had chosen over me, and as she confessed this, tears streamed down her face. She then inquired about my life, asking if I was married or had children. When I told her I was not, she began sharing pictures of us together, reminiscing as if nothing had changed. This infuriated me. How could she act like everything was fine after what she had done? She had abandoned me, never reaching out to see how I was doing, and now she was contacting me only because her life had taken a downward turn. She later shared how her husband had cheated on her too, confessing that he had met another woman, which left her devastated. He ultimately left her in 2019, and she had fought hard for their marriage, but it fell apart when he revealed that his mistress was pregnant. They finalized the divorce swiftly, leaving her with a sense of betrayal and sadness. She expressed a desire for full custody of their children, but he had insisted on maintaining some visitation rights, stating this was the least he could do for the pain he caused her. As she spoke about her life, she seemed very different from the confident woman I once knew. She had been deeply affected by her choices and the lies she had lived. When she asked to hear my voice over the phone, I agreed, but I wasn't sure what to expect. When I answered, she immediately started crying, telling me how emotional she felt upon hearing me speak. She expressed a deep longing for our past connection, saying she couldn't stop thinking about me. It was a stark contrast to how things had ended between us years before. She couldn't stop thinking about me. Memories flooded her mind, especially the times when I used to smile at her, the spontaneous moments that made her laugh, and the charm I brought into her life. She recalled the distinct cologne I used to wear, a scent that seemed to linger in her memory. While we spoke on the phone, I struggled to contain my feelings. My heart was torn. I felt both happy and sad at the same time. Happy because I was hearing from the woman I had deeply loved long ago, yet sad because of the pain she had caused me. She had betrayed my trust, and it still hurt to know that she never cared about the impact of her actions. During our conversation, she expressed a desire to meet up, wanting to see me just one last time. After we hung up, I received a text from her, an apology that left me puzzled. When I replied, asking what she was sorry for, she couldn't provide a clear answer. She insisted that meeting in person would make it easier for her to explain everything. I hesitated, citing concerns about health and safety due to the ongoing situation around us. She countered my concerns by mentioning that restaurants were allowing outdoor dining, suggesting we could catch a bite to eat. She sounded desperate, claiming she needed to see me or else she would fall apart. As we continued our conversation, she shared her struggles since we last spoke. She admitted to making mistakes and wishing she had listened to me instead of seeking the wrong advice from others. She told me she had cried for days, caught between her feelings for me and the pressures from her friends and family. They had painted me in a negative light, telling her that I wouldn't amount to anything, labeling me as a pretty boy who would cheat. To distance herself from me, she made the hurtful choice to kiss multiple people at a party, believing that would push me away and stop my feelings for her. She revealed that her loved ones never supported our relationship, and she felt she couldn't choose me over them. I, being the caring person I was, didn't want to dwell on those painful memories. I understood she had faced challenges, including her husband leaving her and feeling isolated. I asked her not to bring up her past struggles, as it was painful for me too. I encouraged her to focus on her children and suggested that perhaps she could find love again with someone else, someone who could be a good partner for her and her kids. Seeking wisdom from my aunts and female cousins, I shared my situation with them. Their advice was cautionary. They warned me that she was manipulative, calling her a wolf in sheep's clothing. They emphasized that a woman who truly loves you wouldn't want to see you hurt, and would be there for you in your darkest moments. My aunt urged me to reflect on the times I had been in pain. Was she there for me? If the roles were reversed, would she have acted differently? The resounding answer was no, she wouldn't have. Just recently, some of her friends reached out to me, insisting that if I had truly loved her, I would give her a second chance. Their messages infuriated me. It felt so unjust. I thought about how she had left me feeling broken, abandoned. How could they expect me to consider giving her a chance again? I replied with my hurt laid bare, reminding them that she had left me for someone else. One of her friends responded, trying to reason that having 3 children didn't mean she couldn't love me again, and I should forgive her for the past, arguing that I wasn't young anymore either. Ironically, this friend was one of the very people who had encouraged her to leave me for that man she married. I struggled with the mixed messages. If she loved me, why was she still connected to those who had led her to hurt me in the first place? Then, 2 days later, her father reached out, saying that his daughter was in pain and seeking closure. I was shocked and confused. Why should I give her anything now when she had left me with nothing? I had sought closure before, and received nothing in return. This man, who had once shown hatred toward me, and clearly preferred the other guy over me, now expected me to come back to his daughter after she had been belittled and left behind with 3 kids. The situation felt absurd, and I could hardly believe it. I felt my anger growing as I processed it all. My aunts and cousins had opened my eyes to the truth, and now her father was trying to manipulate me into giving her a chance after everything that had happened. After all I had been through, it was hard to understand how they could think I should just forget the past and take her back. The memories of the betrayal weighed heavily on my mind, making it difficult to see a way forward. I faced a significant internal struggle, but I knew I had to meet her. The situation was complicated, especially since I had already made the mistake of responding to her messages on Facebook. After that, I allowed her to call my phone, leading to this meeting. As I approached the restaurant where we agreed to meet, I wanted to keep my emotions in check. I didn't want my anger to show, even though I had plenty of reasons to feel that way. When I arrived, she was already outside the restaurant, waiting for me. At first, I didn't notice her. I was focused on other things. Suddenly, as I walked closer, I saw someone crying with her hands covering her face. It was her. She immediately ran up to me and hugged me tightly. My arms remained at my sides, not returning her embrace. It felt awkward, and I could sense people around us watching the scene unfold. An older woman passed by and asked if we were married, wondering if I had just returned from military service. I quickly replied that we were just old college friends. The woman commented on how emotional she was for simply an old friend and remarked that we looked cute together. In that moment, I thought to myself that this was a mistake. She was making a big scene, crying and causing people to glance our way, as if we were in some romantic drama. I managed to maintain my composure, and we ordered our food, sitting outside while we waited. She looked different, older, and had gained some weight. Then she said, "I miss you," and told me her heart was racing. We started chatting, and she showed me pictures of her daughters. I smiled and told her they looked just like their father, which seemed to make her really happy. However, I was far from happy. While she acted as if everything was fine, I decided to play along for the time being. After we finished eating, I wanted to have a more private conversation. I suggested that we walk toward the park area to sit on a bench and talk things over. I asked her directly what had prompted her to want to meet me. She looked serious and admitted she missed me. She then requested that I listen to her without getting angry. She struggled to express herself, saying she understood if I didn't want any contact with her. She explained she had made mistakes and recognized that if she hadn't gone through the things she did, including her previous relationships and marriage, she might never have realized that I was the one for her. At that moment, I lost my composure. I had been trying to stay calm, but I couldn't hold back any longer. I told her, "Don't let me get this straight. You cheated on me and stayed friends with the girls who talked badly about me. You kissed those friends at a party while you left me alone and hurt. I loved you the most, and you abandoned me when I needed you the most. You left me for dead." I pointedly asked if she still spoke to those friends, to which she tearfully replied that she did. I felt a wave of anger rise within me. "So you left me, and now you want me back in your life after your husband cheats on you and leaves you for a younger woman?" she cried, trying to explain herself. I responded, "Do you realize how offensive this is? You think I'm going to be happy that you're suggesting we reconnect? What is it that you think I get out of this? You already cheated on me. You chose those friends over me, and now, after having kids with someone else, you think I'm just going to forgive you?" As she began to cry harder, having what seemed like a panic attack, she said, "I don't know how to say it. I'm so sorry. I regret what I did every single day." I erupted again, expressing my disbelief. "You moved on from me. Who told you I was still hurt?" she asked, confused. I told her it didn't matter. The truth was clear. She had started dating guys we both knew right after we split. I felt guilty for thinking it was all my fault, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still lying even in this moment. She hadn't even asked about me in all those years. I recalled seeing a video of us together years later, and she hadn't shed a single tear. I was not doing this to intentionally hurt her. I knew her well enough that she would talk to her sisters or girlfriends about this afterward because she didn't understand how I felt. The conversation became unbearable, filled with unresolved emotions and memories that haunted me both then and now. The situation unfolded because my ex struggled to think for herself, relying heavily on the opinions of others. It felt like a recurring theme where she would echo the same negative remarks about me, insisting that I was no good and that she deserved someone better. I expressed my deep feelings for her, sharing my desire to have a family together. If we had taken that step of marriage, I believe I would still be by her side today. In a moment of mutual recognition, she acknowledged the love I had for her. During our brief meeting, she was interrupted by a phone call from her sister, who needed her for babysitting duties and had to leave for work soon. This led us to cut our meeting short. As I walked her to her car, she attempted to hug me once more. I resisted at first, but she insisted, and eventually I relented. In that embrace, she breathed in my scent, expressing how much she missed my presence and my cologne. Later that night, I received a text from her. She reassured me that she would continue to fight for our relationship. She remembered a conversation where I had asked her what she was giving up for that special connection between us. She admitted that, although she had sought relationships with others, none compared to what we had shared. She reflected on her choices, acknowledging that she had listened to external advice that led her away from me, and she was now facing the consequences of that decision. She expressed that I deserved a fresh start with someone younger and emphasized her commitment to proving herself to me. Her final plea in that message hinted at her understanding of my position. While she hoped for my forgiveness, she recognized that I had every right to feel hurt. After that exchange, I chose not to respond, deciding to walk away from our communication for the time being. She attempted to reach out again via Facebook, but her messages stopped coming. Then, just before Christmas, she reached out with inquiries about my holiday plans. Along with that, she sent a quote about forgiveness and personal growth, sharing a story about someone who matured later in life. It seemed she was subtly hinting that the story reflected her own journey of realization about the pain she caused. However, I did not reply after Christmas. Soon after, her friend messaged me on Facebook with harsh criticism, labeling me a coward and saying I was unworthy of her friendship. This friend accused me of being weak for my inability to forgive her and move on. She claimed that if I truly loved my ex, I would have given her another chance, suggesting my previous declarations of love were insincere. Her harsh words suggested that my feelings were shallow, based only on physical attraction. Feeling compelled to respond, I confronted her friend about the situation. I pointed out the hypocrisy in her comments, reminding her that my ex had cheated on me and abandoned me for another man, someone her friend had even helped her connect with. In response to my comments, her friend dismissed me with a flippant emoji, asserting that our conversation was over and insisting that women deserve better in 2021. This friend didn't have a rebuttal when I brought up her previous role in introducing my ex to a man who ultimately betrayed her. It was evident that her friends exerted a toxic influence. I still had a level of sympathy for my ex. She seemed naive and unable to make decisions for herself, often swayed by those around her. As I stood firm in my beliefs, I commented on the contradiction of her friend's actions, pointing out that she facilitated my ex's unhappy situation while simultaneously criticizing me. It was frustrating to see such lack of accountability or remorse from her friend, who had a part in advising my ex to leave me while later connecting her with someone unworthy. Despite not having seen my ex's friend in 15 years, I felt her comments were a deflection of responsibility. As things escalated, I decided to block her, yet somehow, she found a way to bypass that barrier, which added to my frustration. She has a way of getting around the situation that leaves me feeling ignored, particularly since I don't reply to my ex. Interestingly enough, there's the part where her friend confronted me, expressing outrage over how I could act this way, especially considering that this will be the first New Year's Eve she will spend alone. It's baffling to me that anyone could feel entitled to that kind of sympathy. The world is facing a pandemic, and all gatherings have been canceled. It feels as if they are trying to manipulate me emotionally, perhaps to make me feel guilty for my choices. I hope that those who read this can learn from my experiences and avoid making the same mistakes I have made. My situation is extreme, but it highlights the need to steer clear of women who have controlling, manipulative, and intrusive friends. This particular friend is the same one who once told my ex-girlfriend that I wasn't good enough for her and that she deserved someone better. Ironically, this is also the same friend who introduced her to a husband who ultimately cheated on her and left her. I can't shake the feeling that she intentionally confronted me to ensure my ex-girlfriend would hear about it, trying to reclaim her image as the wise friend who guided her to leave me. This friend seems desperate to deflect any blame from her advice, especially since it turned out to be misguided. I suspect jealousy may have played a role, as she likely noticed that several other women were inviting me to join them for celebrations during the holidays. In contrast, I ignored her message and invitation, but casually responded to the other invitations, suggesting they reach out to me directly. It's apparent that some women never change, exhibiting toxic behavior even as adults. I can imagine her crying to her friends, venting her frustrations about me while trying to paint me as the villain. This same friend had told her I wasn't good enough and then, years later, participated in her matchmaking with a man who ultimately betrayed her. This friend now appears to want to regain her hero status, but it all seems to stem from a deep-seated manipulative nature that avoids accountability. I can't help but wonder if she might have sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies. Now, regarding this crazy friend, she was instrumental in hooking my ex-girlfriend up with her now ex-husband. It raises questions if they were still married when this happened or if it occurred afterward, yet she remains friends with someone who was unfaithful. It's puzzling that this friend was the one who initially told my ex that I was no good. She claimed I was attractive, but weak merely because I played football, suggesting that I might cheat, but it's strange because I hardly ever engaged with her. Whenever we were together, she was consistently rude. When I first met my ex-girlfriend, she was already looking for someone new. I didn't realize she had been criticizing her boyfriend, whom she described as cold and unworthy, making me dislike him without even knowing him. Not long after, she jumped into a relationship with me, and soon after started spreading rumors about how I was mistreating her. I encountered her ex-boyfriend later on, and he turned out to be the kindest person. He was surprised and upset to learn that she had been saying negative things about him. When I showed him an old email where she called him a drunk loser who didn't care about her, he was visibly shocked, as he had no idea she was spreading such tales. The only reason I haven't cut her off completely is that it feels like she's still monitoring me, struggling with the reality of her situation. She's seen younger women reaching out to me and has likely noticed pictures of my previous relationships, which must be hard for her to deal with. I haven't replied to a single message or voicemail from her. The last time I saw her in person, it was striking how much things had changed. She no longer carried the beauty that once captured my attention. Instead, she seemed to be fading, constantly commenting on how handsome I was while expressing feelings of inadequacy next to me. She was like a starving animal seeking attention. It's as if everything that has happened is a reflection of karma. I've been nothing but gentle with her despite her past actions, never raising my voice. I continue to ignore all her attempts to reach out, and I know it must have stung her deeply when I recently responded positively to a beautiful former coworker who texted me with a friendly and flirty, "Hey, what's up, cutie?" When she reached out to me saying, "Hey, what's up, cutie? Haven't heard from you in ages, old man." I couldn't help but notice the irony. She's only 27, yet she playfully calls me an old man. It seems like a lighthearted jab, but it brought back memories of our past interactions. She shared that she is moving back to California and expressed a desire to meet up with me. I thought this could open up a chance for us to reconnect. However, as I began to respond to her message, I sensed that my replies might have triggered feelings of jealousy or hurt in her. This pattern of emotional reactions isn't new. It's something I've seen before. Often, when she felt upset or uncertain, she would lean on her sisters or friends for comfort, crying about her feelings. I can't help but feel a bit sorry for her. She has a tendency to be indecisive, which complicates her emotions and relationships. I consider myself a good person and genuinely wish her well. Unlike many who might seek revenge or harbor resentment, I have moved on from our past, keeping only the painful memories. I recall our college days vividly. Whenever we disagreed on something and I felt upset, she would often retreat, crying and calling her sister or friends. They would comfort her, reinforcing the idea that she was in the right, helping her avoid feelings of guilt or being wrong. In one of our conversations, she revealed that her sister advised her to give me an ultimatum, which added pressure to our already complicated relationship. I remember her crying and saying that her friends questioned my loyalty. They claimed I was weak and would likely cheat, mainly because I was a pretty boy on the football team and didn't shake hands in a way they deemed appropriate. This sparked her struggle to make decisions, leaving her feeling more insecure. Her past experiences seemed to haunt her as well. She once confided that she had been cheated on in high school, an event that clearly left a mark on her. It feels like her friends used this painful history against her, manipulating her emotions. It's interesting how her circle of friends comprises women who are not as conventionally attractive. She was often seen as the pretty girl among them, while her friends had boyfriends who weren't as charming or good-looking. Even her ex-husband lacked charisma, which isn't a judgment on my part but rather a reflection of what I've heard from others. A female friend of mine mentioned that some women can be toxic. If they feel they can't get the most attractive partner, they may become jealous of those who do. Her friends labeled me as a pretty boy. They voiced concerns that I would cheat on her, yet the man whom her family approved of ended up being the one who betrayed her trust. This contradiction highlights their insecurities, as they judge me based on my looks while overlooking the true character of those they supported. She seemed to surround herself with, yes, women, friends, who made her feel good and told her she was always right. I also remember one particular incident, when one of her friends suggested she should sample different experiences before committing to a long-term relationship. This advice seemed misguided and only added to her confusion. There was a moment when my friend expressed how deeply she felt about me, and her friends couldn't handle it. A friend of hers even started crying, worried that if she pursued me, she would spend less time with him. To further complicate things, her sister urged her to give me an ultimatum or create a checklist of demands. Her father, who had military values, had his own set expectations for how a man should act, such as always opening doors for women. This led my ex to judge me harshly for things like not holding her hand while walking in the mall. Ironically, the man who her family approved of and who she initially believed would treat her right was the one that ended up cheating on her, while I remained loyal despite being labeled a pretty boy.